Hello everybody, in today's video we're going to be going over some lighter snow which is going to be taking place over parts of the upper Great Lakes and some of the interior Northeast for today and tomorrow, as well as some of Wednesday as well and Thursday. So this is going to be a little bit more of a lighter type of snow. We're first going to cover the storm down in southwestern Kansas, and then we'll go over a little bit of lake effect snowfall which will be taking place from Wednesday through Thursday, again in parts of the upper Great Lakes and maybe some of the interior Northeast. We're also going to have my snowfall forecast for both events at the end of today's video, so make sure you are staying tuned all the way until the end. So let's get right into it, and let's start off with our weather photo of the day. This one was sent in by Steve from Maryland. This one was taken in Patapsco State Park, Maryland, and this was all the way back in the year 2000 in October. So right at the peak of fall, you can see the little mine down there in the center of the screen. And again, it is a very beautiful picture. I think it's probably a couple days before the peak of the fall foliage, so everything is orange and yellow and even a little bit of red mixed in there. And then of course you can see the railroad track right over here. So really cool picture sent in by Steve. If you guys want to send in your pictures, make sure that you send it over to my email address, which is right here at the bottom of the screen, elitheweatherguyyt@gmail.com. It's also in the description of the video down below. Just write a general area where your photo was taken from. So again, it doesn't have to be that specific. It could just be, for example, if Steve wanted to, he could have just said, I took this picture in Maryland, or I took this picture in central Maryland, or wherever he took this picture from. It does not have to be a specific location if you don't feel comfortable, but definitely with all the snowfall that we're getting, or at least the amount of snowfall is increasing, I think we'll probably get a few more pictures. And if you do have any pictures of current snowfall events, then be sure to send those in, because those will definitely get featured. I do want to see some of those snow pictures because, of course, we haven't had a lot in October, and now that we're getting into November, we're seeing a lot more. And again, even if you don't have anything that's spectacular, even if it's just a picture of a cloud that you find interesting, or even just a sunset or a sunrise, definitely be sure to send that in, and I'll feature it in the beginning of the video. So here's what the current National Weather Service page looks like. It's actually quite interesting today. We have some winter weather advisories in parts of Colorado and Wyoming. We have some winter weather advisories in a little bit of northern Michigan, so that includes the UP as well as for some of the lower peninsula as well once you get inland. We also have some freeze warnings up into a little bit of Kansas, Missouri, Iowa, and Illinois with some freeze watches, and I believe these would actually be for Wednesday night and Thursday morning. That's why it's still a watch and not a warning. So I didn't look at the description, but I would assume that this is not for tonight. It's for tomorrow evening in terms of when it'll actually be below 32 in these areas. So first freeze of the season coming for a lot of those spots in Virginia, West Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, and Connecticut. So that'll definitely be interesting. And if anything significant happens there, then I might make a video tomorrow afternoon about the potential threat of some colder temperatures, but we'll still see. We have a few winter weather events in terms of snowfall to cover first, which I take priority over that in terms of the importance of it. I think snowfall, I would cover that first. If there's no snowfall really going on over a significant portion of the country, then I would talk about the temperatures most likely. Now, here's what the yesterday's temperatures were. Yesterday, we were up to 95 in Rio Grande Village, Texas. The low temperature was just 2 degrees in Cut Bank, Montana, and actually this morning, so that was all yesterday's records, but this morning we actually had some low temperatures, I believe, in parts of the Rockies that got below zero. So that would be one of the first below zero temperatures that we've seen in quite a while. Highest rainfall report was in Greenland, New Hampshire, where they got 6.06 inches of rain. Snowfall reports were tied in 2 areas, both of them near Burgess Junction, Wyoming, where they both got 3 inches of snowfall. And that's all the way up in north central Wyoming up here. So again, that was the National Weather Service page. One thing that I do want to cover quickly is the snowfall from yesterday, and it is actually still going on, but to a lesser extent in some of these areas. And it was actually pretty accurate in terms of my forecast on it. Overall, it was a fairly similar event to what most models were indicating. So really not a challenging forecast. It was challenging. If I were to make that forecast, I think 4 days ago, I would probably be completely off. But at least I waited a few more days. And I'm glad I did, because the models really cleared up quite dramatically. They really went from being all over the place to all of a sudden being in really good agreement once we got within 36 hours of the event. So I'm glad I waited off. And if we compared the actual snowfall to my snowfall forecast, you can see really fairly similar. I think the extent of that 1 to 3 inch zone is right over here, or actually the extent of any snowfall, so just a dusting or a coating, goes up to here. And if you look back on that map, it was actually fairly accurate in terms of the extent of that snowfall. So overall, I'm pretty proud of this forecast. I think I went a little bit too far south in Colorado by a few dozen miles, but the zone of heaviest snowfall, I think I did pretty good with that. So overall, not that bad of a forecast. And hopefully we can keep that up with the fairly accurate forecast through the rest of the winter. So let's start off with that storm down in Kansas. So this one's going to be coming out of the Rockies. We're going to have a high pressure system to the north, which is going to be pushing it further to the south. So this is what's going to be creating that big difference in terms of the temperatures. You're going to have fairly chilly temperatures to the northeast of the storm. And then because the storm is coming out of the northwest and diving to the southeast, you will have some interaction between the cold air with the precipitation. So if we move this on, you can see that high pressure continues to move to the south. This is by Tuesday evening, so tomorrow evening, and you can see that we have some light snow into western Kansas. This is going to be a very localized event. As we get into the overnight hours, again, light snowfall. And what we're not seeing on the NAM is any zone for mixed precipitation. So the NAM model does not show that on their forecast. So you're not going to see any zone of mixed precipitation anywhere in that pink color or a purple color. It's just going to go from blue to green, indicating snow or rain. So I'm assuming that there would be some mixing in with the snow and the rain here. So even though it's showing snowfall, not all of that is really going to stick. And then that dives to the south and turns into a mostly rain system, mainly a cold rain for a lot of areas, and the snow really fizzles out after that. Here's a look at the total snowfall map. What you see to the north, that's what the NAM is still showing for the additional snowfall, but that is kind of outdated. That's from about 3 or 4 hours ago when the last NAM run was. So this snowfall on top pretty much is already done with, but the snowfall in Kansas, that's what's still to come for Tuesday night and Wednesday morning. And you can see that we're looking at about 2 to 3 inches on the NAM model. Now, not all of that is sticking. We're looking at probably just 1 or 2 of those inches sticking. So even though, again, the NAM model might print out 2 or 3 inches or 4 inches for your location, don't expect all of that to stick. And in Nebraska, some of that did stick, but you got further to the east, even though some of these models were showing 4 or 5 inches for these spots. Again, not all of that is going to stick, so you have to take into account how much actually accumulates, and in real life, you only saw 1 or 2 inches in those easternmost regions. So same thing is going to apply with this Kansas storm, actually to a further extent, where you're going to see probably more melting than up in Nebraska because of just it being further south and the fact that you're going to have some slightly warmer temperatures. Now let's move on to the lake effect oriented event. We're going to mainly just talk about this quick little shortwave trough, which is going to move through West Virginia. And then after that, it's mainly just very localized lake effect snowfall that will be happening throughout the day, Tuesday evening, and also into Wednesday morning. So we're not going to go and completely run through this model, but we're going to mainly focus in on this right here. We have cold air, which is going to be arriving behind the system. So as soon as this one comes out, we're going to see a lot of cold air usher in. So this is going to be one of those interesting days where, especially if you live east of this system, so into some of these areas for the Northeast, the Mid-Atlantic, even the Southeast, you will have some relatively warm enough temperatures to start off the day on Tuesday. And then even in the afternoon hours, it might actually be colder than in the morning because even though you have some of that daytime heating, it's not really going to count for too much because you're kind of equaling that out with the colder push of air. So even though overnight your temperatures might be 10 or 15 degrees cooler than during the day, if in real life the high pressure system is bringing in 10 to 15 degree cooler temperatures, your temperatures throughout the entire day might stay fairly similar. They might stay right around 40 degrees, 45 degrees. So it's going to be one of those chillier days on Tuesday, and you're pretty much going to stagnate. And then once you get into the overnight hours for Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, a lot of these areas are going to get their first below 32 degree temperatures, or at least their next couple of 32 degree temperatures. So after this system, you're pretty much in winter mode, or at least the early winter mode, because you are going to start to get more and more snowfall, or at least more and more cold air. So this is for Tuesday in the morning hours. So we're looking at 5 or 6 a.m., actually closer to 7 a.m. here Eastern time. And you're dealing with some snow into some of the Smoky Mountains of West Virginia, even up into western Maryland and southwestern Pennsylvania. So if anybody is going to be driving through that area, or even if you live in that area, just be wary of some snowfall. And I think this will actually stick because of the elevation. It will have a better time actually sticking than if this were to happen, let's say, in western West Virginia, where there's a lower elevation. So if this same thing happened maybe a few hundred miles or a few dozen miles to the west, I don't think it would stick that much. But because of the elevation of the Smoky Mountains, it will probably stick a little bit more. You can also see some of that lake effect snowfall. Now, again, we're not going to have localized amounts. We're not going to know exactly where that's going to fall, but just know that once you get closer to the lake shores, you'll probably still be dealing with rainfall, and I think that will be most prevalent around Erie, Pennsylvania, where you go just south and east of the main metro areas and the main population centers, and you get into some of the higher elevations to the south and east of the city, and you're going to turn into snowfall quickly. But again, those areas right along the shoreline, or right along the lake coast, will probably be dealing with just plain rain. So very localized event. Same thing happening up here in northwestern upstate New York, where you have the Adirondacks right over here. So some of that snow will pile up, but you get to the west into the lower elevations and you'll still be in the rain. Same thing happening in Michigan, where you not really elevation dependent, but you get inland and it's naturally colder, and so they'll get some snowfall. Meanwhile, areas inland, or actually right along the coast, will not get as much snowfall. So again, I'm not expecting a ton of this to stick, but it is probably one of your first lake effect events of the season, and it is at least interesting to cover. Now, that system down in West Virginia does move out, or at least starts to move out by Tuesday later in the morning. So you can see that the cold air is now starting to usher in a little bit, and the snowfall is now starting to move out a little bit more. And then we see that by Tuesday evening, we're looking at that system in parts of the mid-Atlantic, and that's moving out quite quickly into the Atlantic, and then right behind it you have all that cold air. So here's your cold air. You can actually see some snow actually popping up in northeastern Pennsylvania, so you can see how sharp that cold air is going to be, where it's snowing or where it's raining at about 40 or 39 degrees in areas like Pennsylvania or New Jersey, and then you go further north and you're actually below 32. So the cold air is also drier, so it will be pushing away some of that precipitation and moisture, but you aren't that far from seeing snowfall. So I don't think there will be any snow with this, but just to your north and west, if this area of moisture was a little bit further northwest, you would definitely be dealing with at least some light snowfall. So it's one of those interesting things. The cold air is moving in at just the right time to miss this system. Otherwise, you would at least have a little bit of snowfall. Here's the total snow map from the NAM model, and you can see that we have some higher amounts again in the hilly areas, south and east of Erie, Pennsylvania, south and east of Cleveland, south of Buffalo. So these areas are getting in on some of the snowfall, but again, the main metro areas themselves will not be getting most of that snow. You get up into northern New York as well, western Michigan getting in on some of the snowfall. I don't think all of this to the south will actually be accumulating, but you probably will still deal with some amount amount of snowflakes flying around. So at least for Tuesday morning, probably no school cancellations or anything like that in those areas. But at least maybe on the drive to school or to work, you will see maybe some snow flying around, which at least will make for a pretty sight. I don't really think it'll have too many impacts on travel, however. And then you go up into the UP of Michigan, and of course we're going to have some higher amounts, maybe even reaching 6 to 10 inches up in that area. Now, here's my snowfall forecast. I'm looking at flakes to no accumulation and more of that white color, which you see to the south of a lot of these bluer areas. And then in the light blue, I have less than 3 inches. So this is my first layers of snowfall for these spots. You can also see that I did include the Kansas storm. So I do think in southwestern Kansas, you'll have some areas getting less than 3 inches. Really, that's not too precise of a forecast. I'm not expecting really anything, and for most spots I'm actually just expecting half an inch to an inch of snowfall, but again, I only have that less than 3 inch area, so I don't go anything more specific than that, but still I'm not expecting a whole lot. So I'm really not expecting too many areas in Kansas to get up to 3 inches. It should mainly be a half an inch to 2 inch type of event. In the Northeast and the Great Lakes, however, that is more of a possibility, especially in the UP of Michigan and maybe some of these areas in northwestern Pennsylvania. This is, by the way, for Tuesday through Wednesday evening. If we move this on to the 3 to 5 inch layer, you can see that includes some parts of the northern lower peninsula as well as much of the upper peninsula as well. And that's the areas to the east and to the west of Marquette, Michigan. And then that area right in the middle of the UP where you're kind of squashed in between those two land masses, you probably will have the lower end of snowfall. You also go into some of these areas like northwestern Pennsylvania. I have a little 3 to 5 inch spot up there. The Adirondacks as well, I have some 3 to 5 inch spots. So I am expecting at least some amount of accumulation, especially in those elevated spots in Pennsylvania and New York. And then also I do want to touch on Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. I actually forgot to talk about that just a couple minutes ago, but you guys will get some snowfall. I know I have some viewers from up here, so I do want to at least mention it. You guys will probably have some snowfall. I'm thinking that for Vermont, it's going to be that central column of mountains. So if you ever look at an elevation map of Vermont, there's pretty much that middle section, which is much higher elevated than the areas to the west. That's where I'm expecting most of the accumulation to be, and it's going to be higher up on those higher elevation spots. So I'm not expecting too many of those smaller valley towns to actually get in on the snowfall that's actually going to accumulate. Those areas might still get snowfall, but I think it's going to come down and then melt right upon contact. So I'm not expecting you to have to shovel anything, any amount of snowfall for this. I think that will be necessary, maybe just shoveling maybe just an inch of snow off the ground in an area like northern New Hampshire and the central mountains of New Hampshire. So that might be more of a issue there. And then northwestern Maine as well, you could look at maybe 1 or 2 inches. You get further up in the peninsula of Maine, and I'm thinking probably less than an inch or maybe not even any accumulation at all. So I just want to cover those areas because I know I do have quite a few viewers from those spots that are curious about that. And if you guys ever want any personal forecast, just leave a comment down below. And then here's that 5 to 10 inch region, and you can see that I have that up for the westernmost peninsula of Michigan once you get inland of the coast, and then also for eastern Michigan, again, areas that are not right along the shore or not right along the lakefront. That's where I'm expecting 5+ inches and as much as 10 inches. We could even see some isolated spots in the eastern UP that maybe get up near 10 or 11 inches of snowfall. So that is going to wrap it up for today's video. I tried to be a little bit more precise because this is going to be a localized event with the snowfall. It's a lake effect event, and even though we're covering two systems, this is again going to be more of a lake effect driven and localized event. So I want it to be a little bit more specific. I'm going to be covering more and more of the snowfall as we get further into November. It's almost as if we completely flipped a switch If you told me 2 weeks ago that we would already be getting into the snowfall, I really would not believe you, considering that it was so warm back just 2 or 3 weeks ago. But we're already getting into the colder weather. We're starting to get in on some of that snowfall, even for some areas, and we already have some of those freeze watches and warnings being posted. So it's definitely an interesting time. I'm thinking that by mid-November, it's going to be fairly widespread with the amount of cold and snow cold air and snow, so that'll definitely be interesting. I'll be tracking all those systems. If you have any weather photos that you want to send in to get featured on the channel, send those over to my email address, which is elitheweatherguyyt@gmail.com. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below, and I'll be responding within a couple of hours of you posting that. And then I'll see you guys tomorrow. Goodbye.